Johnson City, Kingsport, Bristol, Tennessee, Sullivan County, they are all considering the way they monitor the safety of their cars, trucks, and SUVs their employees use.
It's the result of a Community Watchdog investigation that identified hundreds of incomplete safety recalls on government vehicles. Nate Morbido found recalls, some going back years, that warn of airbag problems, fires, and power loss.
Yeah, here's how our investigation started. We requested the VIN numbers of government vehicles and then one by one ran them through the federal government's searchable recall tracker. Most of the recalls we found impact police cars, but we also found a decades-old problem on a van that once carried senior citizens around. In the months after we alerted the agencies about the problems, they fixed more than 100 of the recalls, and some even changed their processes to make sure future recalls are repaired without delay.
The problem is with a chemical inside the airbag inflator.
The Takata airbag recall, one of the largest in U.S. history.
In a crash, if the airbag goes off, the inflator can blow apart, sending pieces of metal into the vehicle and potentially cause injury or death.
And one of the most widely reported on the news. But even with all of that national attention,
you all had made us aware before the manufacturers had.
Kingsport Assistant City Manager Ryan McReynolds says the model city didn't know the recall impacted 32 of its police cars.
It's eye-opening to know the lag between when recalls occur and when the customer, who is us, are made notice.
Over at the city garage in Johnson City,
some of the ones we were not aware of.
A similar response from Fleet Management Director Tim Henley. Why would you not be aware of those?
We just hadn't received the notice.
Using public records, we identified more than 300 incomplete recalls in the region's largest government fleets. At least 140 linked to airbag problems, and more than 50 at risk of possible fires. That's not including others linked to possible vehicle shutdowns.
There are some recalls we'll monitor.
Some, like issues with a spare tire jack that drivers don't actually use in Kingsport, they say they knew about and are not going to fix. Others, like possible damaged wires linked to airbags in Johnson City, they're just going to keep an eye on.
We inspected the wire. If it needed repair, we had it repaired. If it didn't, we monitored it.
And then there are those they say they were trying to schedule to get fixed.
There were some that were in process.
Or were waiting on parts.
A lot of our officers have gone to these dealerships and asked them to fix the recall, but the dealerships don't have the parts. They might have gone a couple months ago. That means that they should probably go this month and try again.
They found out about the other recalls from us, 15 of them in Johnson City, several linked to airbag issues going back multiple years. Which of those recalls do you wish you had known about sooner?
Oh, the airbags, most definitely, because that's a safety issue.
2 others deal with the possible loss of lights while driving. One of those dates back to 2001. The recalls go back more than a decade in some cases.
Exactly right.
Why weren't they fixed?
We didn't receive the recalls. Fleet Management's policy, if we receive a recall, we address it.
We also found this incomplete 2004 recall for a Parks and Recreation transport van, a van that at one time used to carry senior citizens around in Bristol, Tennessee. The recall warned about a risk of an underhood fire, a problem Bristol's since fixed.
Letting a recall go unfixed only increases the possibility of that part failing.
Christopher Basso works for Carfax. The company collects vehicle history information. Basso said of the 63 million unfixed recalls in the country, roughly 1.5 million are in Tennessee. And he says that puts both people in those cars and the ones driving alongside them at risk.
People categorize them as major or minor, when in fact these are all safety recalls. And no matter how big or small you may think the issue is, consider the fact that it affects the safety of your vehicle, and that even the smallest thing could impact one of the safety features of your vehicle.
While these agencies don't intend to fix all of the recalls, choosing instead to just keep an eye on some of them, they have made repairs to more than 100 others in the 3 months since we alerted them of the problem. Johnson City, Washington, and Sullivan counties, both Bristol's and Kingsport, have either fixed, scheduled, or are working with the dealer to get parts on dozens of recalls.
We'll be working each of those vehicles in.
Remember, Kingsport's home to those 32 police cars impacted by the airbag recall. Takata's phasing out its recall over several years and only targeting older cars that are the most likely to be exposed to hot and humid conditions first, like those in Florida and Alabama. That's likely why agencies found out about the recall from us. They also blame some of the other delays on a lack of notice. But in the future, that shouldn't be a problem for many of these agencies.
We'll have to go to the website and, run some vehicle numbers every now and then.
Johnson City is changing its process. From now on, regularly going to the same website we used and manually plugging in VIN numbers.
I think it's a good idea to do that probably on a semi-annual basis.
Kingsport may do the same.
That is definitely something we're considering. We attribute it to your all's work on this project.
Meanwhile, Bristol, Tennessee reports it's increasing its oversight to make sure every department completes its recalls when made aware. The Sullivan County Sheriff's Office is getting supervisors involved.
From the ones I've talked to, they know about it and they've gone to the dealership maybe a few months ago and tried to get it fixed, and now it's just kind of on the back burner for them. So now the captains are going to step in and say, okay, you really do need to get this fixed.
As part of our investigation, we identified pending recalls on some of our news trucks too and made the appropriate repairs. You can do the same for your cars. We've posted a link to the government's searchable database on our website, WJHL.com. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recommends you check your recall status of your car at least twice a year. There you and the government can also sign up for recall alerts.
Nate, thank you. We asked the U.S. Department of Transportation about the delays in some recall notices reaching owners. A spokesperson told us updated mailing information is critical for people and government agencies, but they added people shouldn't just rely on the mail to deliver those recall alerts.